Hey family, welcome. I hope this post finds everyone in good health today, mentally and physically. I wanted to use today to kind of piggyback off of the last blog that I wrote when I talked about the creative process. As I said before, I'm really curious about everyone's creative process, whether you record music and play instruments, whether you paint or write. I personally think that the creative process is the most fun part of, just creating a body of work. The more difficult process I feel like is promoting it and getting people excited about it. But the creative process, coming up with ideas, coming up with themes and characters, I love it and I live for it. So what I wanted to do today was to use an example of my work and how the creative process changed for me and how it challenged me, and ultimately I feel like I got the finished product that I wanted. So I want to use my most recent published book. It's called Ambitions of a Bison. And this work was a little different for me in a few different ways that I'll talk about in terms of the creative process. So I'll just start from the very beginning. Normally when I come up with a book, I normally play with a couple of different titles. I am working on a book right now that I have a couple of titles going, and I'll probably wait until I finish to pick one. Or truth be told, I do ask my wife a lot about what her opinion is, so I might just go with what she picks, so I have to credit her for coming up with the title. But anyway, Ambitions of a Bison. This was kind of like I coupled two things together when I came up with the title for this book. And this was the only title that I thought of, and I didn't change it. So number one is, I'm a graduate of Howard. I love all things Howard. As far as I'm concerned, there isn't another place like it on earth. But the people that I met there, these beautiful, intelligent people, were so driven, so ridiculously ambitious that I always found myself inspired by them and what they were doing from a collegiate level to even now when I see people and like the careers that they have. I mean, I went to school with people who were Truman Scholars, Fulbright Scholars, Rhodes Scholars, and just people who started their own businesses while they were in school. And looking back, they just moved me. They moved me, and they still do to this day. So that's the ambitious part right there. The second part is Tupac is one of my favorite rappers of all time. And I don't know how many of you guys remember his 1996 album, All Eyes on Me. The very first track is that song, Ambitions of a Rider. I can just hear the beat in my head now. So anyway, that song, I love that song so much. Like when I work out or when I'm trying to get some cardio in, stuff like that, I still listen to that song today. It's 25 years old. Anyway, I paired those two together and I came up with the title, Ambitions of a Bison. And so what was different for me was, like I said, I never changed it. I had it, it clicked. I knew I was going to use it. So this story, to tell you a little bit about the story, because I would love for you guys to actually get into this book and check it out and leave a review on my page and tell me what you think about it. But this story kind of centers around a group of characters on the campus of Howard University. And they run the gamut from freshman year to senior year to super senior year, because I know that some of you guys out there know what I'm talking about. And it's male and female characters, which was different for me. So this book is different from my previous works because I always, for my Resilient Night series and my first two books before this, A Slow Accident Waiting to Happen and The Price, wrote in the first person. And it's basically one protagonist telling the story. He's kind of like the only person giving their point of view and speaking through the story, and that's how you interpret the dialogue and everything like that. This book is different because I wrote in the omniscient voice, which basically is I'm giving the point of view for multiple characters, and you get a chance to see what their thoughts are, see how they interpret the world, how they navigate this story. The story itself is kind of like quasi-reality, but it influenced my art. And what I mean by that is, I'm sure whether you went to Howard or not, wherever school you went to, there are things that you could turn into fiction, because this is fiction. There are different stories that you could exaggerate on a little bit. And that's kind of like what I did with some of the stories going on in this book right here. So it was basically reality, in a sense, kind of like fueling my creativity, my fiction. None of these things happened to me, so it's fiction, but just based on like different people that I encountered, different personalities, and there you have it. So I wanted to create a story on a college campus, because as a writer, I really enjoyed her work, and I'm wondering what when her next book is going to come out. Her name was Pamela Thomas Graham, and she was a black writer, and she's actually a business executive too, and she created this series where she was a professor going around to different Ivy League campuses, and most of the stuff that she wrote about was kind of like mystery, which is kind of like what I like. It's one of my favorite genres. This book is somewhat of a departure from that, because this isn't kind of like a mystery that happens in the beginning of the book and you're kind of going through the book to find out who did it. But it was different for me in the fact that I didn't start that way. And I was inspired by the fact that she wrote about different college campuses, but I wanted to write about something that I know. HBCUs, being on a black college campus, having all these black characters, telling this story, kind of speaking about the traditions and stuff, and putting people maybe kind of like in a space where they're like nostalgic, and it triggers kind of like hopefully good memories for them. So that's what I shot for, and I think I got the result that I wanted. That was a part of the creative process that was new for me. The omniscient writing, narration was new for me. Normally what I do when I write is I always know the ending of any book that I'm writing. So that wasn't necessarily different for me with this one, because I knew how I wanted it to end. I just had to fill it in. And so what was a challenge for me was I'm writing from all these different points of view. Like I said, there are male and female characters, and I'm writing from them. Obviously, I'm not a woman, I'm not a young lady, but I'm trying to write and be accurate and kind of be true to what like a college-age young woman would feel, how she would go about making decisions and interpreting the world. So that was a challenge, but I feel like I like the result that I got in that part of the creative process. I like how it turned out, and I just want to go back again to say that I hope you guys can check it out and let me know how you felt about it, because I've had a bunch of people tell me that they read it and people want to go over characters and stuff like that, which I appreciate, but I kind of want that to translate a little bit into some reviews, just to kind of boost it a little bit. So if you guys get a chance, Ambitions of a Bison, check it out. And so another thing about the creative process, I talked about how I came up with the title. I talked about what inspired me to do that. I talked about, just reading another artist's work, because in the post before I talked about how listening to music, how just sitting still and thinking kind of like fuels a lot of the creative process for me. And it did with this too, because these characters, I thought about like what kind of character I wanted them to be, what their personalities were going to be like. And I spent a lot of time kind of just like scribbling in my notebook what this character was going to be like. Where was he going to be from? Where was she going to be from? What were her activities like? What were her extracurricular activities? Kind of thinking about all of that and mixing it all up. I like to say it's kind of like a gumbo. Shouts out to all my Louisiana people. It's kind of like adding different seasonings to the pot until you get that taste that you want. And that's kind of what I did with this, with the characters, with the departure from the way that I normally write, with the title, with the inspiration that came, from it and created it. So with that being said, that was my creative process for this. What's your creative process on the things that you create? I would love to hear about it. Maybe I can find some inspiration from you guys. Let me know. God bless you all.